Welcome back, everyone, to Deadlock Fight Night EU, wrapping up where we crowned a new champion in Pulgia Scumbria. And now we have to see, will we get the same sort of turmoil here in NA? People want to see some action, and I'm joined here with DDK. Of course, I'm ZP, and Dan. Things evolving every week here at Deadlock Fight Night.
Yeah, I love the sort of King of the Hill format that we're running because it's so good at creating storylines, especially in these regions. There aren't a lot of competitions going on, so all of these teams are already fighting for supremacy and even making roster changes to try to find that perfect combination so that eventually, which I think what everyone is hoping for, the scene kind of grows even more and we'll get like really huge tournaments. Maybe the game, full releases, you're going to be in a great position at that point to be picked up by a massive org and start, getting a good salary and going to all the lands. So that's like what we're looking at in the future. But we're at this like really fun stage, CP. And I know that we already have referenced this from the early Overwatch days. I wasn't super present then, but I'm still feeling that early game magic that's so fun because we don't get this. This goes away after the first 6 months or so. This kind of feeling kind of starts to go away a little bit.
Yeah, eventually gets all sorts of corporate. But to give you a breakdown on our format here today, we have 2 challenging teams each week. They fight off, and then the winner of that challenging team match, which is a BO1, they go on to fight the champion of last week in a best of 3. Of course, we're into NA, so that means the winner of our first match goes on to fight the mighty Hydra Nation, which, of course, a favorite from the beginning, then absorbed the competition, became even more of a super team. So right now, they're the team to beat in NA. But of course, we could not do this without support. And today's Deadlock Fight Night is brought to you by Triumph Arcade. Triumph Arcade is a place where you can partake in skill-based arcade-style games against other users and win real cash. They've paid out over $25 million in the last year. Sign up now and they'll double your deposit up to $100. It's the easiest way to make money playing games, and it's all skill-based, so put yourself to the test. Triumph Arcade, go to triumph.gg to check it out. But guys, I'll also just say this off the sponsor read. Even if it's just going and downloading the app, it really does help us to keep the lights on. So if you've liked the show, do us a solid and check it out. But Dan, now we gotta get to brass tacks here and go to the actual matchup at hand. It's gonna be Patron Pulverizers taking on Bottom Barrel, returning from last week. And there's been a lot of roster changes even within the last 24 hours for these teams, Dan.
Yeah, so you'll have to fill me in a little bit on some of those details, but I have to mention out of the gate, Bottom Barrel were present last week, and they actually gave us one of the most exciting matches for a particularly interesting reason, which was Willexo's Bebop. But then the subsequent banning of the Bebop then sort of created a huge problem for Bottom Barrel. So that's going to be one of the storylines we have here, because of course Bottom Barrel would then go into Hydra Nation and get kind of wrecked there. But definitely a lot of really great players. Deathy was with TF2 Boomers previously. Obviously, this is what you're talking about because now they're Patron Pulverizers. They're no longer TF2 Boomers. So ZP, the man on the street, what's been going on in the last few hours?
The TF2 Boomers still exist. It's just Patron Pulverizers had 2 people that had to go missing today, and the TF2 Boomers are subbing in. Also for Bottom Barrel, Fishcake was out, Ido was in, and then Ido, I guess, had something come up. So Bottom Barrel, let me bring up the most recent update here. And also at the same time, mention the production. They have Nech, N-E-C-H subbing in, and they have Naked subbing in. So it's really been a bit of chaos here in North America. That's almost been a trend going back to the first North American Deadlock Fight Night, where Deadlock Deep State basically got destroyed 24 hours before they were going to go against Mahjong and Krill, the artists that Hydra Nation was formerly known as. But now that we've gotten the team history out of the way, Dan, I gotta invite someone else here to help break things down because I know he loves looking at all this team roster mania. We got Mitch, of course. Mitch, this isn't the first time we've seen teams do this sort of stuff in any game, really.
No, I mean, again, like the reality is that many of these teams, even the best teams, are mixed teams. They are pug teams. They come together, they break apart. There's not a huge reason right now to stay together for arbitrarily for long periods of time. So we get a lot of this shuffling, a lot of subbing in. Our job is to try and find the best teams of 6 in NA and pit them together for your viewing pleasure in the Deadlock Fight Night arena, folks. So that's what we have for you guys. I'm glad to see Deathy back. CP, thought he was incredible on the Lash, honestly, for TF2 Boomers. Really standout player in that best of 1, even though they ultimately lost it to the Bebop. He had the right idea in trying to counter Willexo. So glad to see him have another bite at the apple.
Yeah, and you take a look here, Dan, at the bans as they come in. McGinnis banned early here from Patron Pulverizers. Does that surprise you a little bit, knowing that Bottom Barrel, what they like to run? What player in particular?
Yeah, especially because Deathy previously, last time with TFU Boomers, where they played Bottom Barrel, they ran into Alexa's Bebop. And it's so funny because it kind of felt like a stealth pick. The Bebop, it was the final, the 10th, or rather the 12th pick in the draft. And it ended up being, I think, the decisive, hero difference, and everything revolved around the hyper beam. And I went back into that VOD to like look at all of the setups and the build and everything. It's really fun. So I hope we get the Bebop from Alexa. I feel like that's the storyline, and I actually feel it's kind of mental that Deathy's like, maybe this means that he's like, you know what, we want them to pick Bebop because we know exactly what to do against it.
I mean, they were discussing it in stream at length after the game, like Deathy and the whole team, and it was a public conversation as well. Like you could literally listen into it. I think their consensus in the end was, ZP, they had to shut the Bebop down earlier, which is, I guess, easy to say, but that's, easier said than done. I think when Bebop has a pretty powerful lane, especially when combined with another, I think it was it was a Bebop Dynamo in the end, right? Yeah. So just so much, 2 knockups available to you. I like to pick it from Bottom Barrel really quickly. JC Stani, very solid Viscous player. We're seeing a lot of like the Torment Pulse Viscous builds coming out, not so much focus on gun damage, really just being a nuisance with Goo Ball. So, I'm not surprised to see that here. Definitely powerful pick.
And the Pocket coming in on top of it. Ido might not be playing, but the priority on Pocket's still there. Makes sense. I mean, you think the Bottom Barrel, what we saw last week, Alju, very, very comfort on the Pocket. So, I mean, they have players here where, yeah, they're going to be able to play that, especially in NA, where I think Pocket has been even more of sort of a comfort. Like, you have at least one Pocket specialist on your team, more so than EU, where the overall priority has been a little bit lower. But Dan, we got the Infernus coming in here from Patron Pulverizers. They already secured the Lash for Deathy, and now it seems like they're focused on their late game.
Yeah, absolutely. And then there's something that has been quite consequential from what we've seen in a lot of these drafts is picking those high consequence late game heroes. Wraith and Infernus are definitely two the more top picks there, but I wouldn't be surprised to see another Yamato from Bottom Barrel as well. And a young Kalk is pretty nifty on the Yamato, but equally, again, seeing some of the sort of Yamato counters in the Geist. Obviously, Geist is still going to be available and is generally going to be available. It's not usually going to be prioritized in terms of the pick, but we've got another dynamic here that's playing out, guys, with the Lash and the Paradox on Patron Pulverizers. So a lot of initiation all in one place.
I have to see. I have to try and find the win rate for that combination specifically because it's been very, very good. Of course, Lash often getting left in like a solo lane a lot of the time, and sometimes it's like a hard lane to win. We've seen it have to lane against Mirage or Geist, for example, or Yamato, for example. Can be a little bit difficult. Maybe Patron Pulverizers want to put Deathy in one of those more mid lanes, so there's the ability to translate across between mid lanes and have more impact in terms of roaming early on. But there's the Yamato getting locked in here, so Bottom Barrel have the green light to consider that Lady Geist.
Yeah, I think Geist is probably what comes out here. I mean, I think it usually gets picked in 3-4 to begin with, but when the other team picks Yamato, the Geist usually will come into play. They secure the Wraith, though. Again, this is a key difference between NA and EU, again, where Wraith is not the hot commodity in NA that she is in EU. EU, almost always banned early, picked early. NA, they're willing to let it slip way further down. And meanwhile, we didn't really touch on the beginning, but Shiv got banned out super early. Shiv is just the, basically in the Wraith tier for NA, where teams are incredibly protective of Shiv. Ivy, though, coming out from Patron Pulverizers here, Mitch, so showing up their support a bit.
I mean, you're asking, you are basically saying you can pick Bebop if you want to. We still think we have a way to beat it. And based on what we see here, I mean, a lot of countering Bebop comes down to itemization, whether it's like reactive barrier in lane, knockdown, of course, stuff like that. No, there's not necessarily like a hero that fundamentally will, punish Bebop. I mean, ones that can sort of find ways to shrug off. The hook, right? We talked a little bit about ways to play around it. There are some. You can always cue the person who gets hooked, but you don't really want to be immobile in front of them here. So Ivy Warden to round things out, and now we get to see whether Bottom Barrel are going to run it back again and put Walexo on that filthy Bebop.
Surely.
Yeah, you'd think, right? Because, Dan, we've looked at this before and what they like. Oh, my. Okay, they go Geist. I mean, look, you can't hate on the Geist pick. That genuinely surprised me. You would think they would go with Walex here because they had the green light.
Yeah, it's going to be super interesting to see how it plays out. But it's actually good for us because we don't want it to be the case that it's a one-trick pony. If you ban the Bebop, that's kind of like game over. So we do need to see that versatility. But I was kind of like really hoping to see a Bebop game personally.
Yeah, I mean, again, if Bottom Barrel make it through, they have the opportunity, but I don't know if it's worth, picking against a team that can sort of just ban it out or find ways to play around it. We don't know if Hydro Nation have a way around it necessarily, but here we go. We are ready to rumble, guys.
That's right. We're getting into it. Patron Pulverizers versus Bottom Barrel for the right to fight Hydro Nation in a best of 3. Thank you, Mitch. Of course, we'll be checking in with Mitch at the end of this match. But now, Dan, as we get into it, a lot of ways this one can go down, where even when you consider prep we did beforehand, these teams had so many shifts of rosters. The sudden infusion of TF2 boomers in the Patron Pulverizers, Bottom Barrel practicing with Ido, but now Ido not here. You say we don't know what to expect to an extent. I'm not even sure the teams know what to expect with all these changes short notice.
Well, all I'm going to say is Bottom Barrel win the logo battle, at least. I like just decrepit, rotten, disgusting barrel. I thought that was beautiful.
I think Alju spent like 2 minutes on Google search images. When I was like, hey, Alju, do you have a logo? He's just like, all right, hold on a moment. And, Barrel shows up. If you search for Barrel in Google, that might be one of the top things. Not even kidding.
Well, we are off to what should be a start of an interesting series. We have had that previous upset of I suppose the people that had the crown. PS winning now have the crown for the European phase of the broadcast. We'll have to see if the crown will shift heads in this broadcast as well. Bottom Barrel with a lot to prove. Again, last week it was a pretty flat result, honestly, after the Bebop was getting banned, and that was kind of sad. So seeing that they're not trying to lead with that, and it didn't get banned instantly, very interesting right off the bat. And we can see the solo lane, Infernus against Wraith CP, and the Yamato versus Abrams. I feel like these are like very common extremity lanes.
Yeah, nothing too shocking in terms of lane setups. I also kind of like the Paradox Warden setup, because that's one of those lanes where you can set up binding a little bit more easily than you might expect just from Paradox's Carbine, right? So decent kill threat, and Paradox can still secure denies, last hits. As they say that, Dan, already Yamato striking first blood on the Abrams. We've seen this Abrams-Yamato lane quite a bit in solo in various matches.
Yeah, it's interesting. Yamato does need to get a good start, and so that's going to be great for Patron Pulverizers to kick things off with. I don't think the Abrams is going to be missing out on too much CS though, looking at it, so not the end of the world. The timing of the kill does have a great deal of impact in terms of missing waves or not. And we're going to get an early gank potentially here. The disc is coming over.
Yeah, they're trying to even that out just a bit. We'll see if Yamato is aware of it. Of course, organized play teams usually a bit better about alerting about missings. But now you see the dive coming in on Yamato. Auto punch out from Viscus. A little bit of dive. Yamato, though, if Yamato's able to survive, still pretty low HP. But the backup comes in from the last here, Dan. So a good rotation, and it mitigates some of the dive potential.
It's my bread and butter.
Yeah, kind of an equilibrium established there with now on the solo lane we've got a 2v2, and looks like they'll be sticking with that for the time being. Obviously quite easy to go back onto lane 2 if they need to do so. But, it just also shows the emphasis as to for the teams as to how important it is for them that they don't lose a grip on that particular solo lane, the Yamato and the Abrams.
Overall, though, Patron Pulverizers a little bit ahead in the aggregate. You look at the heroes that need farmed. I think the scary thing right now in the game is where Lash is at. The fact that Deathy is already at 2.6k is a little horrifying on the whole, I would say. It's one of those things where once he hits 3k, the roam potential, especially playing in the number 2 lane, is pretty high. You either go make Abrams' life really difficult, or just tilt the scales on the Kelvin Geist lane.
Yeah, and not having the Bebop to have to worry about and have to force like a knockdown item, Deathy's going to be able to actually perhaps have a lot more impact in this game as he did compared with the previous week's matches. And coming back over to that number 1 lane to try to gank the Abrams. Bottom Barrel might be in a little bit of trouble with that. A lot of pressure there. Although it looks like Abrams will be able to pull back and escape. Oh, maybe not. Young Calc going to go down.
Yeah, Young Calc getting taken out, and again, different region, different teams, but rough start for Abrams, which isn't always the greatest, Dan, because Abrams is one of those characters where, again, it's a little similar to the Warden in the sense that you want to at least be even with the other team to be a threat to, essentially take people out in one charge combo. The further you get behind, the more you're kind of forcing utility, which isn't necessarily the greatest place to be.
Indeed. And we're getting kind of close now to 3K stalls being online, which means that you're going to get stuff like your paradoxical swap online, so your initiation's really going to be powerful. Obviously, Deathy got there a long time ago, as we talked about, with the death slams available. And that's going to make things quite interesting, as we get 3 players on lane 3 now, trying to force more pressure towards the Guardian. And at the same time, we've got a battle between both the Wraith and Infernus on the 4th lane as well. Kiki, paradoxical swap does get used.
Quick stone form, Boink. Gonna throw down the Kudzu and just back it up a bit. 20k versus 18k on the aggregate now. Both teams still full Guardians. And right now,
Close to a kill there. We are not fighting these kills. It's very, very fine margin.
what I'm interested in here right now, Dan, is what Deathy does next Death Slam that's up. Deathy right now just still trying to get the most of farm, not going back to heal. Even when Death Slam is up, you're not necessarily going to go for a gank at a 3rd HP.
Yeah, and I kind of like that too, because, you know, having that lead that he has right now in the stalls, he's quite far ahead. So, you know, sacrificing any additional time to increase that lead, it's definitely a, you know, decision point. And I enjoy that he's like prioritizing the farm there. 5k stalls now for him, and we can see more ganks potentially being trying to set up here by Bottom Barrel, looking for the opportunity there. Not going to find it though. And we got a lot of players congregating in lane 2 here for this team fight.
Yeah, it's going to be a party. Death Slam though, up now from Deathy. Focus fire going on the Yagoo. Yagoo having the shadow transformation under fire. Paradox swap out. Yagoo though right now tries to get away. The slow walk of Shane as Yamato can't find a way out. Patron Pulverizers down 1. They're also reasonably healthy right now. This is under pressure, gets slammed, cubed himself just in time. If it's enough to get out. Turning fire, Boink falling in the fray. Trade outs across the board here, Dan, but Deathy making the most of it. We're finally falling at the end.
Yeah, Deathy getting every single kill there, I think. 3 kills. So it ended up being a pretty even scenario. Ultimately, there's sort of fight going on, sprawling across the mid-boss structure. And yeah, fairly even in terms of the stalls. And right now there's a taste on for Infernus, trying to take him down. Nice team coming in to try to slow things down, but I don't think it's going to be able to convert into a finish. However, the Guardian does go down. A really nice work there. And that's going to be a small objective advance. Well, it's actually full trade in the 1-for-1 for the Guardian.
Guardian finding word connect, and nice. Not gonna live. Life drain, not enough in that moment. Meanwhile, you see Warden just going like, please, where's my mobility to get out? Dove just a little bit too deep. So the trades continue. 32k to 32k, and you know the interesting thing here for Bottom Barrel for me, Dan, is that Deathy was like pretty far ahead, but anytime you get into a situation where the teams are turning out evenly, it also like blunts the advantage one player might have if there's several thousand ahead of time.
Yeah, that's a great point. And it is very even across the board here. I was trying to look at the farm for all of these carries, but it looks like the combustion is going to come in, but the King will block it. Keeping Delvin alive just for a moment longer. It is inevitable, it seems. And now the Geist has turned their attention to the fight. It is kind of sketchy, though. It's a 2v3, so Bottom Barrel will reposition and play defensively. Back to lane 3 for them.
Yeah, meanwhile, we got 3-on-2 in the other direction. Bottom Barrel trying to overload on the lane 2, looking for the Guardian. Decent pulls up here, too, for Bottom Barrel as they move in. No telekinesis up, though. I think right now they're just focused on Guardian and get out. Doesn't seem to have a big rotation coming their way, so I'm just going to get that and leave. But it's a game of trades here, Dan, because while that's going on, you see Yagoo back in lane 1 go, yeah, I'm going to grab this Guardian. It's mine.
And this is kind of beautiful, actually, that we are in this game of trades. It's 40k to 40k, so there's definitely some equilibrium. We can't see the kills just yet, but it's pretty somewhat even. Deathy with another one with the help from Point. And, okay, well, the trade potentially coming in. Young Calc wants some of this with that charge. And here comes the Ice Path as well. And the Ice Beam, and there's no escaping that, it seems. Can Young Calc finish it off, though? That's the question. More attention coming in from Patron Pulverizers, reinforcing the fight, and overwhelming, but it's going to be Delvin's ult that's going to keep him maybe safe for just a minute. Nicely timed parry coming in to try to save himself. Obviously, the Ice Grenade providing a bit of extra heal, trying to stay alive here. Needs somebody to come in and help. How's you in with the cloak, but forcing out the ult from the Yamato. Will the Yamato be able to escape? That's the question. And looks like the answer is a definitive no.
Gino staying alive for an enormous amount of time. And again, what was a big back and forth exchange, one that Bottom Barrel got the better of there. Able to chase down Deathy at the start. Young Calc getting on the boink off camera. And you were talking about, hey, what characters like to be even or ahead? Well, think about the game state right now. Forget about the aggregate. A lot of that extra farm went in the Young Calc on the Abrams, and now his ability to roam is going to be so much more powerful. I say that, Soldier Charge in! Fine, Spooky. Proving the point as I say it.
That's beautiful. I just love how violent that looks. Just charging at the guy, just like smashing him into the wall.
The real crime, for at least for those Americans in the chat, is that it's football season and we don't have a football Abrams, which clearly has to be pretty high up on there.
That's quite a good point. Oh my god, the Steam market could go crazy for this game. All right. Well, we've got the 10-minute mark hit, and this is the next sort of, I feel like, inflection point. How are the teams going to handle the urn pickups? Obviously, the urn is going to be dropping right now, so we get repositioning from Bottom Barrel towards that urn, and we've got good lane control, but here comes Young Calc. It's just so incredibly aggressive.
Shadow Transformation! Yeah, Yagu didn't have Shadow Transformation up yet, so Young Calc says, I'm going to go for this. This is a doable pick. Gets Yamato in time, and also has the gun might add on top of it, and Hunter's armor. So Young Calc, kind of a force to be reckoned with, gets the charge! Finds Warden, oh boy. This Abrams is becoming a raid boss before our very eyes. Deathy says enough is enough, goes in with Boink, and yet Young Calc, still looking durable, still not dead. This rotation comes in to try and bail him out. Paradox in, lands the swap, Deathy punishes the pocket. Young Calc healed up, still in the fight, still a threat.
Oh, finally, goes down. But behind all of this, CP, behind all of the action there, they picked up the urn, they delivered it, and they're pressuring the fourth lane Walker as well. So they got a lot of value out of that whole heroism from Young Calc. That was kind of like some kind of gladiator scenario. You're in the arena, it's just the Abrams, and then you like sequentially send more and more forces, and you're able to handle it.
Yeah, and again, think about how that started. That was just Yamato being a little bit out of position. Yagu a little bit up in lane, no Shadow Transformation, so a way more attractive target to gang. Young Calc comes in, sets that off, and because you're ahead on Abrams in game, you're able to like last way longer than he otherwise would have, and it turns into a very beneficial moment.
Yeah, and this is now a pretty decisive lead in souls at the moment that has come from that. We were previously talking about how both teams were in parity in terms of just the overall state of the game, but we've got a big shift now, and the question is, Patron Pulverizers, how exactly they're going to come back from this?
Well, we'll see. Young Calc right now might be on the hunt again. Stuff is a brewing in lane one. It's going to be a 4-man rotation for Patron Pulverizers. Bottom Barrel, they don't want to fight this. They don't have the people available, and they are going for the Abrams here. They're going for the Viscous. Naked, not quite able to roll away, and as tanky as Young Calc is, don't know if this is going to work out in his favor. It's a whole lot of yellow and one Abrams, 4 guys, and Abrams.
But there is a trade at the same time on lane 3. We do get a Walker getting taken out by Bottom Barrel, so they do at least get a Walker for those a couple of kills that they lost.
Sometimes
and they're going to pull back off of that.
said
Just clear up the map once again, and the next turn is going to be around 15 minutes. So about 2 minutes to farm the map before you're really thinking about that macro positional play where you're looking to try to focus on the urn. So the farm across the top half of the map is really pretty cleaned up here. And this is the thing about map controls, VP, is that if you're the team that's taking control of the map, you're doing stuff, you're forcing the other team to react, your carries are getting free farm kind of wherever they want, and they're not going to get disrupted.
Yeah, not only has Bottom Barrel been able to grab more of the jungle, but also just from the macro play and the space that's been created by an Abrams that just got 3K ahead. They also, of course, were able to get 2 walkers, so they have the extra flex slot on top of it, which means that if your carries have been getting farmed in, they also have way better flexibility in buying the build they want versus making concessions or not buying the most optimal thing. So there is a power gap that really starts developing here, and you wonder for Patron Pulverizers at this point what you do to get back in, and you gotta be looking at both your Paradox and your Lash to create moments for the rest of your team.
And I would imagine we need to see some counters to the Abrams, like maybe some anti-heal, something to start dealing with that, because the sustain on the Abrams alone in some of these prolonged fights is pretty scary. And it looks like got quite a congregation here towards the third and fourth lane.
Ooh, it's harder than you'd think, doesn't it?
A little bit
Again,
of
that's coming in 1 minute.
tech. I love the movement tech that has come out, where I feel like every week we got a new movement tech. A little bit of action here. We got guys moving in for the Infernus. The follow through over the top comes in between the pocket and the Delta. So neck, nice little pick, and digs the hole for Patron Pulverizers a little bit deeper, but here we go once more. Young Cal just hitting W, looking for the Paradox. Might have gone a little bit deep, gets swapped in the walker range, binding word out, caught in place, and taken down.
Swap and binding word. That's a nasty combo right there. Okay, pretty much everybody here from Patron Pulverizers on this second lane. Infernus back up. Earn is on the closer lane to them as well on that first lane, so they're going to make their way across to try to get and secure that position. Obviously, you got to wait for the Earn to finalize its dropping, and we can see it with our lovely cinematic.
He's being chased right now. Naked, in danger, taken down by Death Beam. It's a long chase in progress. Gives a little bit of life here to the Patron Pulverizers as Earn is available. And look, Earn, one of the better catch-up tools in the game. You run faster when you're behind with it. There's a little bit of catch-up souls involved. And I think if you're Patron Pulverizers, you put everything into the Earn here. See if Blink can get away. Blink, no. Taken out by Young Calc. Seismic Slam into the air. As this fight develops even more. Both teams down one. We'll see how this Earn fight develops. For Patron Pulverizers with one to even out, but it might not happen right now, Dan.
Yeah, looking to give that one up. The sole difference is, of course, still definitely recoverable with one team fight, and that's, I think, one of the things here. If you're Patron Pulverizers, you don't want to force that team fight around the Earn. You'd rather let them just get a little bit ahead and just keep things in control on your end. Oh my goodness! Oh. Can he escape? Nope. Oshi Pop is dead. That is having a hard time here.
That is also the power of experience there, where you just get that much value out of essentially gun viscous in that moment, where you're just like, at first, don't care about it. Also, as a result of that pick, the Earn is uncontested. Young Calc adds in the threat of Patron Pulverizers evening up from that. Gone. Patron Pulverizers instead right now. Trying to get the pick on the Kelvin, trying to do a little bit more pressure onto this last remaining Guardian, but don't know if it'll happen this time. Deathby doesn't look keen to stay in.
It'd be a great way to come back if they can somehow win this fight and then push the momentum into the Walker. That'd be amazing, but they're forced all the way back here. This is desperate stuff. Algae with that affliction is supremely annoying, and the finishing blow should surely find its way here as well. Everyone's being chased down. This disengage is taking Patron Pulverizers like quite far back towards their own side of the base here. But are they going to be able to survive? Are they going to be able to make it? It's still on.
It's a long fight that just continues here, Dan. The pursuit in progress from bottom barrel. Nice and coming, getting very, very low. Deathy somehow still alive on a Women of Prayer. Just gets a flog off. Now gets the rescue beam. Even back and forth. Alex, though, striking. Gets rid of Pashi. Here's the threat here, Dan. Young Cal towards the end. Right side, still on the hunt, looking for Yamato. As the fight breaks down, it's breaking down more from bottom barrel. Finds deck, both teams trading out, 3-2. Thus far, follow through. In off Yamato. Yeah, I mean, it's 3-3 right now.
Yeah, Yagi will get traded out though, and still just the huge, like, Young Calc is just a veritable brick wall. Like, it's so hard to like demolish Young Calc if you don't have the right ordnance to do so. And that, I think, was fairly decisive. That stopped the fight from actually being a full recovery from Patron Pulverizers. I like what they did, because in the disengage, it carries a risk that you will get picked as you disengage, which was what it was looking like it was going to happen. But if you turn at the right moment, and as a team you kind of encircle your opponents who are chasing you, you can have a good engagement and turn the fight around, and then they will be committed. That's what was kind of starting to break down there. But as we settle after that fight, you can see the difference. Actually, Walker recovered slightly. I think it was about a 20k, 25k difference previously. So Patron Pulverized on the souls at the very least, bringing it back a little bit. They are behind a couple Walkers.
Well, one thing that does hurt in terms of the overall income advantage versus disadvantage, right, is that some key core items have come online. When you think about what Bomb Barrel's been able to buy, like you have the reverb up now on mech, which means that any remaining fight in the game versus guys is going to be hard to get away from, either disengaging from or chasing, just because of Malice span reverb, which offers a lot of area control right now. But I do think when you look at it, where it's at 19 minutes, both teams are taking care of their jungle. It's a lull before the storm, and I do think Earn could be the next inflection point here, unless someone is just a little bit too sloppy in lane. I think both teams, Dan, here are just going to bide their time and wait for Earn.
Yeah, absolutely.
I see pocket.
And well, it'll be interesting to see, you know, how that will look, because again, I think in these Earn fights, the initiation options are really nice. Although actually trying to get out of there with a majestic lead. And this is very dangerous. Paradox comes online out. It is now stuck. We're going to get a casual poke. No, everything is offline. Gets taken down. And that is a huge pick for Patron Pulverizers.
Also, so well timed. Patron Pulverizers, they set up about 4 people, just eventually get on the left side of the map, and they all invade the jungle at the same time. They know jungle is being taken. Now, note, as they do the invade, you have the macro edge here, right? Where Neck is pushing down a lane, looking for more gun up onto the Abrams. And gun count. Cosmic Slam here. Just chase down Paradox in his sights. Leaving to go, and Dice is on shrines right now. Gonna die for the attempt. No, maybe not. Ends the swap just in time. Not silenced. Although heavy pressure ends up falling. But think about the presence on the map here. Geist is pushing this all the while. Earn, meanwhile, now going to be grabbed by bottom barrel.
Yeah, I think we're at a point here where it's really quite decisive on the game here. Whether Patron Pulverizers come back or the lead extends even more for bottom barrel. I think there's a window here where Patron Pulverizers feel the most competitive in these fights that they felt in a while. And obviously mid-boss is up. I feel like that would be an amazing swing. If you can get a good team fight into that mid-boss now. But first, it's going to be the Earn response. And right now, with bottom barrel running it, our Patron Pulverizers can have a good setup here. They look at the step here.
Naked's down. Yeah, Naked got caught mid-rotation. Patron Pulverizers, he's picked up so far. Tashi only a little bit low. Now you got Young Cal pacing down Basilius. Fight taking place by the single ball. Oh, from out of nowhere, the charge from Cal ends up dying, but makes his mark known, sets up bottom barrel to even out the fight, perhaps more. Pashi and Boing very low, trying to escape here. Boing and chased down by Alju. No way out. And Dan, that might set up our first mid-boss of the map.
Yeah, I don't know that there's any good skill options there. And oh, Oshi Pop going down again. And indeed, oh, all right. He's got the Earn still, so but he's very far away from the drop-off point. So mid-boss will be there for bottom barrel. This is going to be more about denying the Earn and just waiting for your teammates to come back up. And perhaps you could try to force the fight, or at least create delay those EP with the Earn by threatening that they will deposit it. That should in theory pull bottom barrel over towards them. That could waste some of the rejuve buff time, but at the same time, I mean, I feel like bottom barrel could also push the base. They could split push as well behind that. There's a lot of options here for bottom barrel, for sure.
Yeah, I mean, I think at a minimum, taking the Earn there just means you don't have the double downside of the other team getting both Moss and Earn at the same time. It just digs the hole you're in that much deeper. But it is a tough spot to be in. The upside for Patron Pulverizers is that pushing into a base with a Lash, not always the easiest thing. And the gap between the two teams, Dan, hasn't hit the point where Patron Pulverizers can't win if they get a good engage. Like, one really good engage set up by the Lash and Paradox very well could still be all they need to win a fight. It's not out of reach, though they are in the realm now where one more bad fight could just make it GG.
Indeed. Looks like another fight will be brewing here on lane 2. Ooh, by the Walker. Alju gets caught. That's a massive pick to open up the fight. Obviously, Rejuve online will be back in the action fairly quickly. Getting lifted up, Deathy, but there's no follow-through for that. So looking kind of good here right now for Patron Pulverizers. Again, you don't want to overcommit here, but we've got a very aggressive King Basilius on that warden there, going deep for the kills as they chase bottom barrel across the map, but I don't think they want to keep going.
No, not with Rejuve in play, where trading out is not to your advantage. But also, you gotta credit Deathy there. Incredible burst him to take out the pocket of all heroes as machine gun go burn. Take it though. Gonna have to immediately get out of there. got Rescue Beam just out of harm's way. But your bottom barrel, you still have at least about 3 minutes on the rejuve. You want to finish off what is left walker-wise here for Patron Pulverizers. Get an extra flex slot and make the most of the advantage you have right now.
Yeah, we have Death Slam online, and once again, Alex is going to be popping the paws. How dare you, sir? How dare you? Well, this is an interesting situation, CP, because we've kind of stabilized around this like 20k soul difference for like quite a long time, I would say. So,
Bro didn't charge his headset. Yeah, that's why we need a peripheral sponsor on top of it. You know, if one is watching right now, we just be like, you know, if you had this brand sponsor, this wouldn't have happened because our batteries last that much longer. Good charge though. It's already back in it as the walker continues to be under pressure. Deathy though, looking for it, lands several on the death slam. Also going to be there. In Young Calc in danger, tanky though he might be, goes to the cube and the follow through. Way better from bottom barrel. Death slammer, no. Great support by Naked in the moment. And this could be the game in total, Dan.
Oh, yeah. All right. Oh, I did love the fight though from from Patron Pulverizers. I feel like that's the fight he's going to try to win. And they managed to, they stabilized for quite some period of time, but at this point in the game, it just takes a one team wipe, and that is it. That's a wrap as the Patron is transforming, and it's another 20 seconds until basically anybody's alive. So I think indeed, CP, this is the end. At map one, at least.
That's how quick things can escalate. Patron Pulverizers had the option to maybe bring it back, but one bad fight when the other team has rejuve, and it quickly gets out of hand. Bottom barrel secure their berth to get that rematch versus Hydra Nation just after we wrap up here. And, you know, they played it close, Mitch, for quite a while, just not close enough.
Here we go. I'm back. Young Calc clearly learned something after getting double charged by an Abrams last week in the game that blew out against Hydra Nation. That was insane Abrams play, but a little bit of a tendency to overheat, maybe a little bit at times. Real playmakers on this bottom barrel side. This might be one of the most competitive games that we've even seen in a Deadlock Fight Night. Like, genuinely quite close until just towards the end. I think, I've got to give credit to Deathy again. Great initiations, great picks, and at times, guys felt like the Patron Pulverizers were well and truly in this until right at the end of the game.
Yeah, totally agree. Definitely getting a early lead, definitely dictating a lot of the action, and a lot of the reasons why they stayed in was those early picks that he got on multiple occasions, and otherwise, they were, I think pound for pound going to lose in those fights. So completely agree, and also might as well plug Deathy's YouTube channel at this point. Makes great content. Guy seems to like an all-round badass, downloading the top level knowledge from all of the scrims that he's grinding and just uploading it straight into your brain through his YouTube channel. So check it out.
Yeah, and I think, again, there's sort of unique circumstances coming in here where Patron Pulverizers, they had to get the TF2 boomers in to sub. I thought Deathy coming in a substitute situation did super well. I think you have to note that here because it is, kind of a chaotic opening to the game, all in all. I also think when you take a look at how that final fight broke down, I think that's where you saw they went for the death slam. They tried to focus a lot on the Young Calc. Young Calc was able to stay alive. I think the support from him was great. You had the cube go mid-fight, so the initial target you fight on doesn't die. And as a result, your entire team fight plan kind of goes awry. People start falling one by one, and you blink, and suddenly you're down 4 people, and the game is over. But you look at factors in the game here, Mitch. We got the stat screen in front of you. Anything surprise you based on what you saw?
Look, I think like something that's not showing up in next sort of score line. I think if that game's a little bit longer, Lady Guys just sort of hit her power spike. I think he just picked up the crippling headshot at that point of the game. So that's when she's really devastating. Naked coming in for JC Stunny here on the Viscous. Different build on that gun build. Looked really good. Like mechanically, so good. Was very impressed. And some great charges from Young Calc. I think like really aggressive across the map. We knew that the Abrams charge got nerfed so it doesn't just suck people in, but in his hands, it still looked, really powerful. And I've got to give a shout out to Gio. There's a fight there, I think, between Gio and Yagu, right? Where there's like some awesome parrying. You guys brought it up on air. The fact that Gio stays alive so long against Yagu, against that Yamato, with just some sick mechanics, and then help arrives and they end up killing him out, it was really good. So all across the board here, bottom barrel looked very, very much improved.
Yeah, I got to say, I think Young Calc for me was the standout because he was the reason for the major swing of value in the game. And it was because there was this earn run scenario. But because Young Calc, like you highlighted, ZP, found that moment where Yagu's ult was not online and landed a charge and suddenly drew 3 or 4 more teammates toward him, that cleared the entire map so the urn could be freely run. And it's not just that the urn gets run for free. It's just that the all of that distraction means that there's no opportunity to punish. There's no opportunity to trade value somewhere else because all the focus was on Young Calc, and Young Calc managed to kill like 2 people by himself. So like that's outrageous.
Yeah, and people sometimes wonder for Deadlock, okay, how do you convert early leads into bigger plays and a bigger advantage going forward? And while I don't know if it was 100% the plan going in, when you look at the reality, Young Calc, because he was ahead at that point, rather significantly so, was able to command a lot more attention in lane than one single Abrams normally would. And when extra attention came in to deal with that threat, well, the rest of the map was wide open for Bottom Barrel to get more objectives, to do things like run the urn with impunity, right? So you look at it at face value, people sometimes look at team aggregate. You got to look at who actually has the farm on a team and then look at what you can do with it. And to me, this is a reminder of, hey, if an Abrams does get ahead, it's actually pretty scary in the wider game implications that can open up for you if you put yourself in scenarios like Young Calc did.
Let's do play of the match, bro. Let's get that out of the way. I kind of want to talk about some of these individuals.
Here we go. And of course, this should not come as any surprise. Young Calc had some of the best plays on stream, had one of the better narratives we were able to talk about. And as we go to a highlight reel, it's going to be a lot of Abrams chucking people in the walls, just like Mitch in high school.
I mean, all right. I mean, look, the most impressive part about this, I think, is it forces Joshi to rush ethereal ships on Infernus. Like, that is the first tier 3 item. Poshi only ends up with 1 kill, really gets shut down in general. There is so much they can just dump on the Infernus. Even with that mobility that Poshi has, he still feels like he needs an extra cooldown for that invulnerability. That's when you've got the fear of the devil in you, when that Abrams is up on you constantly. There's so much pick potential. Wilex can do it as well, but Young Calc looks sick, really confident, and to some degree, I feel like he was really pushing the limits of, what you can kind of do with Abrams. Some mid-air charges that were just mind-boggling to me. And I think DDK pointed it out. At some points, he just seemed unkillable. Look at how this health bar drops, or rather doesn't, and multiple fights.
Yeah, a really beautiful play again. That was like the exact scenario we talked about in the score screen. It's so impressive. I mean, Abrams is one of those types of heroes that can pull that stuff off. Obviously, you got like the melee items and lifesteal, whereas and the melee charge. Suddenly, you got to be really careful because one punch and like a third of the health is back. So devastating stuff. And I mean, I wanted to see more from those two teams because that game was so close.
Yeah, it was.
But we'll have to see. Oh, one thing I'll mention, and I wanted to ask you guys this question. I know we're supposed to go to a break, and I'm messing out the whole run of show up. But this game, obviously, in theory, requires a lot of coordination. I felt like Deathy's team were pretty well coordinated and had pretty good comms, despite the fact that they're just like standing as basically a pug team.
Yeah, I think you have to give them credit for that. I mean, it was just one of those cases where they put it together last minute and made it work. But Mitch, I know you had one last thought before we go to break.
No, I wanted to chime in. I thought Death did a great job at getting these big initiations. They're grouping up, playing from the top of buildings, coming from odd angles. In this game, like, you don't have other ways of getting vision if your minions are not seeing your opponent, so you can make these surprise plays happen. And I hope they make the way into the game more for teams that are from behind, that have to get inventive with making plays to catch up and fight against teams who have that solely.
All right, so that's Bottom Barrel taking it over Patron Pulverizers. They've earned their rematch versus Hydra Nation, the kings of North America thus far. Who's going to win in our upcoming best of 3? Well, stay tuned and we'll find out.